Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Polished Nerd Podcast. I'm your host Oliver Kardrick and joining me is Matthew Patterson.
Hello.
Alright, this is the 4th episode. Who would have thought we'd gotten that far? It might be sounding a bit better because we actually have some equipment now.
Yay, we have proper mics. You can hear my horrible voice in stereoscopic audio. I don't even know if that's the right word.
It's probably not, but we'll go with it anyway.
No,
because
almost definitely.
Turn into the crash as you do. As also big news, this is the first episode we'll actually be not pre-recording. This is going live this week. We're recording it this week because we wanted to get some latest news stories and things going. So should we just start then with things that how are you this week, Matthew?
I'm fine. I have no complaints. I'm still trying to process Infinity War, honestly. Spoiler alert, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, this episode will be focused mainly on Infinity War. We'll be doing both a spoiler-free and a spoiler review, but I'll timestamp them and give warning when we switch over to spoilers in case you haven't seen it. But before we...
Or maybe not. Maybe you'll have to watch in fear.
Yeah, that might be quite fun, actually. You know, just getting the hate mail. Right, but before we get onto that, we've got some other things we want to talk about that's happened this week. The first one of those is we got a Deadpool 2 trailer, and personally, it's the only Deadpool 2 trailer I've actually enjoyed. What about you?
I think it's the only one you need to see. The first time I've looked at it and gone, hey, you know what? This kind of looks like Deadpool. The first time I saw the trailer was at the screening for Infinity War. And yeah, it looks like they've taken the tsunami of criticism that they had in their early screenings on board. They've re-embraced the ridiculous, over-the-top nature that makes Deadpool the popular character that he is.
Yeah, and we've got finally introductions of some of the supporting cast. I'd have personally not heard of any of them, but I've gotten them written down here with their powers next to them. What about you?
So, I didn't actually know prior to this trailer that Terry Crews was in the film. That came as a bit of news. That's one of the reasons I really want to watch it, because Terry Crews is the best. Who doesn't love Terry Crews? I don't quite know what's going on with Domino.
Yeah?
Obviously, it's an appearance very, very different to her comic book appearance. Obviously, the white skin, black hair. I believe it's either a diamond or a spade on her eye. I can't remember. Obviously, she's a young Domino, but yeah, massive afro. Which, yeah, sure, why not? And then there's what was his name at the end?
Peter. I looked this up.
Was it Peter?
Peter, yes.
Peter, who just saw the ad.
Yeah.
I really hope they keep that scene in, and that wasn't just shot for the trailer.
I really hope he's the only character that makes it out of this movie alive. Because apart from Deadpool. But imagine,
of course.
at the end of the movie, they have this massive fight with Cable, and he kills everyone. So we lose Shatterstar, we lose Bedlam, we lose Domino, and then there's just Peter stood there in his glasses, going, "Hi."
Yeah, I want Peter to have a pivotal role in the film.
Yeah.
That's what I want. That would be a true kind of embrace of the ridiculous nature that made the first film such a hit.
Yeah, it will be. Okay, so we got the other characters. We'll quickly talk about them. We've got Domino, who we've mentioned previously. Apparently her superpower is being lucky.
It's making her own luck.
Okay.
So she can manipulate chance to kind of alter the outcomes of certain events. Classic one, for example, if she's fighting someone with guns, she could increase the chance that their gun jams, or certain ricochets or things.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fairly. It doesn't sound like a fairly interesting power until you think about its applications. Could potentially be quite game changing.
Well, you'd never lose anything, would you? If you were the.
Well, of course, yeah.
So then we've got Bedlam, who's played by Terry Crews, and I don't know anything about his character, so I did a little bit of googling before we started. And apparently no one knows much about his character because his Wikipedia page was incredibly small. But what I managed to gather from it is that his superpower seems to be that he can create a biological EMP, which is fine, I guess. I mean, that's a very narrow superpower, which maybe...
Bedlam isn't the draw for me. The draw is Terry Crews. I just want to see quite a ridiculous actor in an equally ridiculous setting.
Yeah, he's perfect casting for this movie. Terry Crews, his comedic timing is brilliant. If he plays anything like the character he plays on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, we're in for a treat here.
I was just going to mention Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Okay, side note, if you haven't seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the one scene you need to see, an introduction that they've just released, basically the lead policeman manipulates a criminal lineup into singing I Want It That Way by the Backstreet Boys. It is the most Brooklyn Nine-Nine scene I've ever seen. So yeah, go and Google that, because it is the show in 40 seconds.
Fair enough. And we have one final character to talk about. That got really loud. I'm going to have to edit that down in a minute. And that is Shatterstar, who, again, quick Google search. A little bit more on him than Bedlam, not much. He looks just like his comic book character, which is a nice touch. And his superpowers seems to be he's got an accelerated healing factor, enhanced cognition, and the ability to generate shockwaves and create teleportation portals with his sword. So this sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm open to that. As I know next to nothing about him, so it kind of is what it is. We'll have to see, won't we? There was a point in time that nobody knew who Iron Man was, and look at him now. So
we'll probably get a joke.
Not that I'm suggesting Shatterstar will
No.
sort of transfer to the MCU and become the head of the Avengers. Who knows? Well,
Fox have announced that Dark Phoenix is going to be their last movie before the deal with Marvel happens, so we may get Deadpool.
Are they just going to attempt to murder every single character?
I think I don't know. I think they're just going to just disband it, and then there'll be X-Men will show up in Marvel somehow. It's going to be a weird transition, but it worked with Spider-Man. I mean, we lost Andrew Garfield, who was a pretty good Spider-Man, but now we've got Tom Holland, who's kind of amazing. I was thinking as well, we're probably with the ability to create teleportation portals, there's room for some amazing meta jokes in there that if they don't land, I'm going to be bitterly disappointed. Because we could have Deadpool fall into a universe. We could have Deadpool fall into our universe for a split-second joke and see that he's a comic book character and things like that.
Well, he knows already. He's aware of that, isn't he? That's his whole... But to actually see that referenced on screen...
would be kind of awesome.
Rather than just sort of turning to the camera, yeah.
So, yeah, we also got a couple of digs at other studios in this trailer. We got the Calm Down Thanos joke and the so dark it should be part of the DC universe joke. They didn't land for me as much for some reason.
No, I don't think so. Just kind of struck me as a bit pathetic.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word, just a kind of my movie's better than yours. It wasn't particularly clever.
And it's also felt like the jokes like that in Deadpool were mainly at the expense of Fox, like the studio that was making the movie.
And that's what made them funny. It's what made them meta. If it's just Deadpool referencing everything around him, I know that's his whole thing, but do it in a more intelligent way.
Yeah, get more. Was it the Stewart or McAvoy universe joke? Like that's the kind of thing we want. But
that's an in the know joke.
Yeah,
I think that might just be a side effect of Deadpool being so successful, is you're going to get a more mainstream audience for the second one.
Yeah, well, they've got, they've put more money into it, so they need to get more money out of it. So they need to, broaden the horizons, and it's fair enough. I hesitate to say that I'm excited for this movie, but I'm looking forward. Yeah, looking forward to what they do with the character moving forward. On a similar note to that, we also have a Venom trailer. Now, this has, let's say, split audiences, is probably fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, so I learned that the trailer was out because there was a website trashing the trailer. I didn't actually see the trailer until last night. Again, I had the pleasure of seeing the trailer before I saw that GIF that's doing the rounds on the internet.
We've shared it on our Facebook page.
The Venom googly eyes GIF.
Yes.
Which has basically retrospectively ruined the trailer for me.
It's brilliant though.
I personally don't think they look that bad. I would take the kind of symbiotic kind of I'm struggling to find a better word than goopy.
Yes.
The goopy look over the kind of over the what they did with the Tobey Maguire Venom
Oh, Topher Grace. Yeah, that was not great. I was really dreading this movie when Sony leader, I think her name's Amy Pascal, announced that they were doing a Venom movie, and I thought, like, oh, for God's sake, this is just you're making a movie out of a character that, yes, has a huge fan base and a lot of people like, but Venom is not a character on his own. He works really well as a Spider-Man villain, not as a solo character.
Exactly. Same reason we're never going to get a Hulk standalone film. I think they've learned that he's not that interesting as a... It's the same reason I'm wholly against the Solo film, the Star Wars film.
Yeah.
If they're not... What makes them interesting is how they interact with what's around them. The Hulk on his own is not an interest...
Shameless plug, the Solo episode will be coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh dear. That's not going to be a positive one, I'm sensing.
We got Deadpool in between, so that might be positive. So, you were saying, Venom, Eddie Brock, symbiote, Goopy.
Yeah, I don't have a great deal to say about it because I have only seen a trailer. I don't know much of it outside of that. Yeah, I think it looks good. I don't think it'll break any sort of records or go down in history as the great comeback for Sony. But, yeah, I don't have much to say about it.
We'll just have to wait and see. And Tom Hardy's always a win, though, isn't he?
He's pretty bankable from what I saw in the trailer.
I liked the thing they did with the Venom voice inside his head. I thought that might be quite an interesting way to go with it.
I thought that was interesting, yeah. Because obviously in Venom's previous appearances, we only saw the one perspective. To see Eddie Brock actually experiencing this symbiotic relationship rather than just, ooh, I like being mad, it makes me happy. Which is the line that sticks with me from that fucking film.
Well, yeah, it's a wait and see. We've had we've had two trailers, but we've had one where this is like the major trailer. It's not a teaser.
We've had two trailers and googly eyes.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. I'm still going to go see it. The question of whether or not this is part of the MCU is still kind of hanging in the air. It says in association with Marvel at the beginning of the trailer.
I would take that to mean that it's not.
But is this Venom Tom Holland's Venom? Because of course Homecoming was part of Sony, but it was also like Sony made it and it was part of the Sony universe, but it was also part of the MCU. It's a mess at the moment, and hopefully Fox will learn from the way that Sony have badly handled the deal with Spider-Man, and the X-Men deal will be a lot simpler and a lot more coherent.
Yeah.
Okay, so now on to Matt's story, which I know absolutely nothing about, and that's loot boxing and gambling for kids.
Yeah, so if you've heard anything about this, it concerns a certain EA Star Wars game. Been a big development, Lootbox video game gambling. It's always been quite a dodgy grey area, the idea of paying for in-game currency through microtransactions to open packs or crates or whatever fits the theme of whatever game these things are in, and getting random items that actually give you gameplay benefits. It's always been a bit of a dodgy area. Obviously the most notorious examples, the Ultimate Team system in FIFA. You buy packs, you get these players obviously, and their individual skill levels will affect the game. Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, skins in that game sell for just ridiculous amounts of money. I think the world record is something like $60,000 for a sniper with a dragon on it. Star Wars Battlefront 2, obviously with its loot crates, which again you can buy for real money and they'll offer you gameplay benefits, or they had at first. Obviously there's been a massive storm following that. Star Wars was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. There have been all sorts of inquiries going on all over the world. But there's news in the past couple of days from Belgium Gaming Commission has actually come out and said that loot boxes in all forms are actually in violation of gambling legislation. So any games published in Belgium are legally required to remove these things now. So EA, for example, they're going to have to rework FIFA, Overwatch, Counter-Strike, or they could actually face criminal prosecution.
Now the question is, will this affect the actual development of the games, or will they just start making separate versions for the countries where this is illegal?
It's difficult. Obviously, we've seen an example of a radical change with Battlefront. So of the 4 games, the Belgian Gaming Commission actually investigated FIFA 18, Overwatch, CS:GO. and Star Wars. Only Star Wars was found to not actually be in violation of the law, but that is only because they just kind of cut off microtransactions, made it impossible. So they hadn't actually, obviously at the time of speaking, they've reworked the entire loot system.
Neither of us have played it since it's been fixed.
No, I kind of lost patience with it, I think. I'd be very surprised if it did mean a big change in the way that games are developed. Nowadays, games are built around microtransactions, which is a shame but from a business perspective, it makes sense because there's no technical limit to the money you can make. Obviously, it means you can no longer own a game when you buy it. You just buy a game and you're essentially paying the game rent until these companies get bored and shut servers down and things like that. I'd like to think it's a big step, but ultimately at the minute I don't think it will. But I think the declarations in Belgium will lead to more similar decisions around the world.
It's looking good though, isn't it? I mean, Star Wars Battlefront 2, I loved the game when it first came out. That was because when I bought it, there was no loot boxes, no microtransactions or anything like that in it. You worked to your character, you built them up, and you could play the game really well. Since they've patched it or whatever they've done to it, I've not touched it. FIFA I've played, but I've never played Ultimate Team. I've never seen the appeal of that. I use it for the career mode and just mucking around with friends. And the other two games I've never played, so I don't really know what they're like.
So of the 4 games investigated, 3 of them are run by EA. EA are particularly egregious with this craze. They, I suppose credited is the wrong word. They can be credited with the introduction of the microtransaction purchased random item that may or may not enhance gameplay trope. I could talk for hours about games that have them built into them. Obviously, Call of Duty nowadays, the latest one, Call of Duty World War II, you actually have to go to a separate game lobby with other players to open your loot boxes, just so other players can see you get loot. It's sad. It's sad, but hopefully this ruling will be the first domino in a long line of dominoes that puts an end to this sort of thing.
Yeah, or it's EA, so it's equally likely they just find another way to do it.
Yeah, or EA just continue sucking money into their slimy, amorphous mass.
I'm saying, with all of this, if they end up banning the loot boxes, which if Belgium start it might start trickling into other countries. But the thing that worries me is if that happens, we might in a worse off position because they might start taking the WoW approach and make you pay a monthly subscription to play their games.
I'd like to think it's out of the equation, but if being a gamer for years has taught me anything, it's not to count anything out. The whole industry is kind of circling very slowly around the flushing toilet at the minute.
Yeah. Well, you've got EA who won't even use Steam. They have their own versions, which you have to sign up for, of Origin.
Which EA with Origin, Ubisoft with Uplay, harassing everyone about that.
It's not looking good for the video game industry, but things might change. I mean, it's weird as well, though, because we judge games like EA and games companies like EA and all of those for putting these loot boxes in it, but yet the company with the most profitable loot box system kind of goes under the radar, and that's Rockstar with GTA Online. People spend so much money on shark cards. I'm guilty of it. I've done it before.
You bought a yacht, I believe.
I bought a yacht, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think because Rockstar really have such a small games library, and it's sad that they're acquitted of doing it because they do it the least.
Yeah, but they still make the most money off of it, which is, I suppose they get away with it because you don't need them to play the game as much. Whereas, well, I suppose loot boxes, you never really need them, but actually, playing GTA Online recently, they have kind of made it so you need to start spending money on it, which is...
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. What the fuck happened to GTA Online? That's a good sort of half an hour's worth of content there. Should we start talking about Infinity War? I think we should start talking about Infinity War.
Yes. Okay. So we are now we went to see Infinity War. I went on Thursday night. Matt went last night. We're recording this on a Saturday.
So it's, as we're recording, it's the 28th. Infinity War's been out for 2 days. It's its opening night, it took something like $25 million, something like that.
27.6 million.
27.6. As of recording, that's pretty much quadrupled.
Yeah, they're now at 95.
It's projected to be quite a high-grossing film. The projections don't suggest it's going to overtake, what is it, The Force Awakens at the minute, I think?
No.
Oh, is it?
It's going to fall about 30 million behind Force Awakens, but be about 10 million more than the first Avengers movie. I'm pretty sure, I mean, I'm not a gambling man, but I'd put money on this being the biggest film of the year.
Yes. I think that's a pretty safe bet.
Everyone's seen it. I've talked to people that don't even like superhero movies that are going to watch this because it's just like a cultural phenomenon now. So when we talk about it, first of all, we're going to save the people that haven't seen it, and we're going to be giving an overall review on the movie without any spoilers. We're not going to be talking about any plot points, nothing. That's going to be doing, I reckon...
So we're just going to be talking general thoughts, general notes. We have to keep it general because it is so easy to spoil, I think.
I think that will probably be between 15 and 20 minutes, and then we'll give you guys a warning, and we'll go into like full spoilers. We'll talk everything. We'll talk all the plot points and everything. I don't want to say anything right now, just in case, but I'm going to put a warning right now. This movie basically starts directly at the end of Thor Ragnarok, so there will probably be spoilers for that movie all the way through if you haven't seen it. And almost every other Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. But most people have seen them by now.
Well, if you haven't seen them, then I don't see
but
why
thanks
you're listening,
anyway.
Quite honestly.
Okay, so...
go and watch
having
them.
Seen it yesterday, Matt, what was
out.
your initial reaction when you left the cinema?
I had to walk it off. I was shaking. Not a bad shaking. Spoiler alert. I was frustrated that they, in my opinion, did such a good job. I thought it was brilliant. Flawed, of course. The problem with hyping a film for 10 years is that unless it's perfect, people are going to notice little things. And obviously we're going to get into them. But I thought, I mean,
yep.
It's my favourite Marvel movie that I've ever seen, and I will stand by that. The main thing for me that I was worried about is Thanos. They absolutely nailed Thanos. He's far and away Marvel's best villain. Oh, it's very careful. I've got to be very careful with what I say. They did such a brilliant job with Thanos. I'll get in.
Yeah, and we'll get into Thanos more.
Yeah, of course we will.
I wasn't as positive about you, as you about this film. I really, really, really loved it, but I didn't think it was one of the best. I feel like there were some moments of tension which were cut like needlessly by humor, which is a very Marvel thing to do, but you look at this film and say like, well, this was directed by the same people that did Winter Soldier, and that movie got dark. That movie it knew how to hold its tension.
Yeah, of course. And that there were dark moments in Infinity War. But when you cut them down with a joke, like that immediately,
it's very Last Jedi at times, which it's nowhere near as bad as that movie. I mean, if you guys have listened,
episode 2, episode 3, go and listen to them now. That's where we stand.
Yeah, go home, Star Wars, you're drunk. But I loved it. I really did. It had...
I would be generous and call the tone inconsistent. Just going back to... I wouldn't say it was a mess, but certainly some of the timing needed a little bit of work.
But you're going to get that when you have characters like Doctor Strange talking to the Guardians, because their movies are completely tonally like different ends of the spectrum. So if you put them in the same scene together, you're going to have Doctor Strange getting all serious and talking about magic, and Star-Lord doing jokes.
Yeah, of course, and that's not a complaint specific to this film.
No,
it's not. It's always going to happen when you bring characters together. Justice League had some similar problems, among others. It's not a game breaker, but it was noticeable to the point that it frustrated me sometimes.
I will say it was very impressive how the Russo brothers managed to keep the movie in their style that we'd previously seen in Civil War, but like there are moments in the film. It's just not a spoiler because I'm not going to say anything. But the moment you get introduced to the Guardians, you know it's a Guardians section, and it feels like a James Gunn.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that was brilliant. They start playing very sort of Guardians-y music, that kind of like 80s sort of jivey music, and immediately you know it's them. Before you see the shit, before you see anything.
And you get the colour palette, which is just off the scales.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
There are some things as well that need mentioning that we can mention here because they were in the trailers. If you saw the trailer and you thought that the new Spider-Man suit looked a little bit clunky, they didn't fix that.
Yeah, that doesn't go away. No. Overall, the CGI was amazing. Actually, that's just another thing to touch on. Thanos looked incredible the whole way through. Absolutely amazing. Now that he hasn't got sort of plum skin, and they've actually worked on. Although another issue I have with CGI, this can be edited out. If not, I'm not sure it is a spoiler.
Yeah. Because
we saw in the trailers Mark Ruffalo in the Hulkbuster armor. So, seeing Mark Ruffalo's at some point in the film, he takes the helmet off, and seeing Mark Ruffalo's head poking out the Hulkbuster suit, that wasn't great. There was a very noticeable border, and obviously Mark Ruffalo's just default confused face. I was laughing hysterically.
And it doesn't help that Mark Ruffalo is like the shortest actor in all of the Avengers. So to see he's a very small man.
His tiny head. Yeah, and seeing his tiny head poking out of this giant armor.
It worked.
It was ridiculous.
I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was just the right level of just what. We'll explain why he's in the suit later on. Well, anything else you want to mention? Did the humour land for you overall? Because it's a very funny movie at times.
It is a very funny movie. None of the jokes fell flat. Compare it, for example, to Star Wars, The Last Jedi. So many of those jokes just kind of didn't land for me. This one, I'm not the sort of person to laugh out loud or anything at the cinema, but they all kind of worked, apart from the aforementioned issue with some of the timing. But none of them weren't funny. None of them didn't feel like they made sense, that they didn't feel forced or anything.
Yeah, the jokes were all very in character. You have Thor making jokes about not understanding how Earth works, and you have Drax making his standard, brutally honest.
Oh, Drax just standard borderline autism. I don't know what's going on around me. Drax is my spirit animal, I think.
He's brilliant. He's brilliant in this movie as well. He's handled brilliantly because they obviously Mantis is part of the team now, so they expand on his relationship with her from Guardians, and I think that's quite good. And then you've got Star-Lord being Star-Lord, although it continues the theme of immaturity for him, which we got in Guardians. We'll go into more detail about that later. But one thing I didn't quite like is you had characters like Captain America making jokes, and not that I don't think Captain America can make jokes. He's a charismatic young chap, even though he's probably like 100 years old. But
young chap with like a 3-digit age.
Yeah, but he's not really been that character up until now. He's always been the the earnest, honest, tell you how it is sort of character.
This is the first time we've seen him since Civil War, which was possibly the broodiest film ever.
Yeah.
To see him return so quickly to kind of observational jokes. There's an interaction between him and Groot that kind of didn't fall flat, like I say,
it's a bit weird.
It would have made more sense if someone else was doing it. But I suppose, obviously, they had to illustrate the point that this is the first time that these characters, have met.
Overall, the humour was pretty good, and I had a really good time. I laughed a few times, but it was what was beautiful about this movie as well is there were moments where I was laughing in the cinema. But then there were a few moments where I was nearly in tears. It really gets to you at some points in the movie, particularly towards the end.
There are flaws in this film. Obviously, it's very, very difficult to talk about them while we're not spoiling things. But what this movie does, what this movie does well, it does, damn near perfectly. It's just so hard hitting, some of it, and then so cartoony. And I know you could label that as an inconsistent tone.
So we've talked about the tone, we've talked about the humour. Personally, I think the pacing was a little bit off. I feel like because they had so many characters and they had to introduce them so quickly and get everyone to know everyone by the end of a 2.5-hour movie, there were times where it was like, we're jumping to these characters, they're going to give you a load of exposition, then we're going to jump to these characters and they're going to give you a load of exposition, and that's understandable.
Of course,
the best
that's always going to be the problem with introducing, how many different teams of superheroes together in what was probably no more than an hour.
Yeah.
They had to kind of get everyone not only together but on the same page and united.
Yeah.
They didn't do much sort of jokey, infighty stuff, which I liked.
No, it was solid. When I watched it, the comparison I made was like Rogue One, which is the build-up is rushed and all over the place to get you to the point where you need to be, and then when it gets there, it just nails it.
Yeah. That's a fair analogy.
So it's overall the tone, no, not the tone, the pacing is a bit of a mess, but it works. The only times I feel it falls down is you'll be going 100 miles an hour doing everything really quickly, and then it will get cut to a slow scene, and that slow scene is really important in character developing, but because you've been jumping and cutting and doing all these amazing things with all these other characters, it does feel a little bit draggy. Not enough that you get bored, but you're just like, oh wait, when are we going to get back to the main plot?
Yeah, of course. It's not that they're slow, it's that they're slower.
Yeah.
It's just necessary plot development, and again, not that it's slow, it's just if you come out of a big action sequence and then just have characters standing around chatting to each other, that's just a problem with doing something like that.
Right, here we go, Matt. We're finally at the place I've been dreading ever since episode 1, and that is, for the first time ever, we actually have to, rate a movie.
Oh, God.
I don't like giving numbers, because they don't work.
Movies, especially ones of this nature, they're so interpretive, and personal preference comes into it so much. Assigning it a number, just taking all of a movie's faults, all of its shortcomings and all of its achievements, and assigning everything a number. I just don't feel like it's a good way to do it without breaking that number down. But okay, here we go.
Well, I'm not going to give it a number, because I'm going to stick with the same review I gave the movie the second I walked out of the cinema, and that is, go and watch it in the cinema and buy the Blu-ray. That's what I'd say about this movie. It's that, in my opinion, this is a movie that you need to see in the cinema. I wouldn't say go and see it more than once in a cinema.
Well, I desperately want to see it again, but at home. I wanted to see it once just to kind of get it out of my system. Same thing I did with The Last Jedi. I want to go and see it, just kind of let myself get lost in it. And now I want to see it again and kind of break it down in my head.
So would you agree with that rating? See it once in the cinema, then buy the Blu-ray.
Yeah. If I had to give it a number, I mean, I know it's an easy enough answer to say, but the current Rotten Tomatoes review, I think it's certified fresh on 84%.
Have we got I can look that up while you're talking.
No, I just have.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's certified fresh on 84%, and I say that's about right. Obviously, there are flaws, there are faults. We will get into them. Some of them are very, very difficult to ignore. But yeah, I feel like if I were going to number 8.5 out of 10 would be the fairest score I could give it.
Okay, right, Matt, here we go. Massive spoiler warning. We're now going to be...
Okay, spoiler alert. Yep. Spoiler alert.
Meh.
If you haven't seen Infinity War, go away.
Yep.
We're going to be discussing literally everything we liked, hated, and saw.
We'll probably completely run down of the plot of the movie. So if you're going to see it later, just don't watch it. You don't want this movie spoiled for you.
No, especially not one that's been in the building for so long.
Yeah. So, anyway, right.
Okay, you've been warned. Here we go.
So, the first thing I've got written down that we have to talk about is Thanos and the ending of the film, because it's the biggest talking point. It's the thing we're going to have the most to talk about. We might as well go straight in there.
Yeah, LOL, who dies XD.
Yeah. Matt, basically, all your dreams for this movie came true.
So before the movie started, I said that I wanted Infinity War to end with Iron Man coming into possession of the last Infinity Stone. In the case of the film, it would be the
Soul Gem.
Well, yeah, the Soul Gem. Well, it would be the Soul Gem. Obviously, you can't come into possession of the Mind Stone, with it being on Vision's head and all.
No.
So I wanted Iron Man to come into possession of it, Thanos to kind of, well, to grab Iron Man, to kind of throw him to the floor, and for him to, we just see him start sort of swinging punches. We don't see them landing. We just see Iron Man's sort of faceplate sort of bouncing and vibrating in slow motion on the floor. As Thanos swings his arm, the camera could sort of shake. And then, so Thanos standing up, holding the arc reactor. I believe that's what it's called, the arc reactor in Iron Man's chest. I wanted Thanos to stand up holding that, so an implication that Iron Man had been killed. And then putting the Soul Gem in, holding up his fingers. And obviously, anyone who's read any Thanos comics will know that his kind of trademark grin, close up on that, and then snap, and then cut to black. That's how I wanted it to end. Wasn't that far off, actually. Wasn't that far off at all.
No, it really wasn't.
They did actually bait and switch us with Iron Man. So many people were sure that he was going to be the one to die in this part,
including us.
Yeah, I was convinced. The second sort of Thanos stuck the knife into Iron Man, I realised I didn't really want it to happen. Just from what I'd seen of Iron Man, I'd kind of forgotten just how much of a joy Robert Downey Jr. is to watch on screen. But as it turns out, we'll talk about it. As it turns out, there's a situation which means Iron Man survives. They kept the finger snap in, which I am so pleased they went with that, because to see that on screen, it was just amazing. Really, really cool. We did actually see who died as well. I'm still thinking on whether or not I like that we know now who was wiped out by the snap. Obviously, snapping of his fingers, half the life in the universe just ends like that. I'm not sure if I like I say, the fact that we know who died. However, Marvel would have come under some serious hate if they hadn't at least given us a hint. So, shall we go straight to who died? Just get that out of the way.
Okay, so we'll mention the deaths that don't happen by the snap later on. We'll just mention the deaths that happen from the snap now, because other characters die in this movie in different ways. Well, they deserve their own segment, so we'll talk about them in a bit, and we'll talk about literally just what is essentially the last 5 minutes of the movie is a montage of characters that you know and love dying.
Yeah. So who was it in order? So the first character we see after the snap is Captain America. And he turns and sees Bucky.
Which was heartbreaking.
Yeah. Just the confusion on Bucky's face. On all the characters' faces, really.
So it was Bucky, then it was...
So we lost Bucky Barnes.
We lost all of the Guardians, except Rocket.
Rocket. The Falcon. I think the Falcon went as well.
Black Panther.
The Black Panther. That caught me off guard. We'll go into it in a second, but yeah, that really caught me off guard, that one.
Who else have we lost? We lost Doctor Strange.
So we lost Doctor Strange, and probably the most heartbreaking one to watch was Spider-Man.
Oh, that was when I was nearly crying in the cinema. Because they drag his death out, and he's begging for his life, and it's just,
His is dragged on. Just the confusion. You just see this superhero as a boy.
Yeah.
Just a scared boy in a world that Tony Stark dragged him into.
And he's on a different planet. He's not even on Earth at this time. So
he's on Titan.
Yeah. And it's just, it was genuinely heartbreaking, because everyone else dies, and it's just Tony Stark, who is the only survivor on Titan. He's literally the only living thing left on Titan at the end of this movie.
It's going to be interesting to see how they sort that.
Yeah.
Because he is on his own on Titan. Thanos isn't even there.
And his suit's broken.
Oh, yes, that's right. His suit's broken as well.
We'll talk about the new Iron Man suit as well at some point. But yeah, it just, all of these characters just die, and then it cuts to like Peter, and he just... Basically, the way they die is they just disintegrate into dust, kind of like Voldemort at the end of Harry Potter.
Yeah, 12A, everyone.
Yeah, and like Peter's arm just starts crumbling, and he falls onto the floor and begs that he doesn't want to go, and it's getting dark.
He still refers to Tony Stark as Sir. That's what made my spine sort of I gave me goosebumps when he was doing that.
And the look on Robert Downey Jr.'s face is just heartbreak. It was brilliant scene. It's I think it's one of the strongest scenes we've seen of Robert Downey Jr. like just emotionally as Iron Man, because like this is a kid that he's responsible for. He's got involved. He's the one that has put him in this place.
They, as far as I am concerned, they turned the kind of prodigy master student who was going to die aspect of it on its head, because I thought it would be the other way around. I thought it would be Spider-Man watching Iron Man die. They've been quite clever with who they've killed. Obviously, these characters that have died, they're not going to stay dead. We've got Guardians 3 coming. We've got Spider-Man, a Spider-Man sequel coming. Black Panther, obviously Marvel's most well-reviewed film, the most bankable kind of setting, characters. However, that raises the question of where the fuck they're going to go with it in part 2. Really does leave me with no idea.
No, I personally think they're going to reverse it so that all of the new stars that died are going to come back, and all of the old stars that lived. So you basically the characters that survive is you've got Captain America, you've got Thor, you've got Hulk, you've got Black Widow, the original Avengers. So I feel like they're going to somehow manage to reverse it maybe, and all of them are going to die. But then I don't know how. It's all speculation. This movie could go anywhere. They could just kill them if they really had the balls.
Yeah, and that's what's clever about it. Although all the kind of, I heard loads of Marvel snarks in the cinema sort of going, yeah, well, they won't stay dead. Oh,
but they won't.
But no, of course they won't. But it was never about that. It's about keeping it vague. Obviously, where do they go for part 2?
It's so up in the air. I feel like the one character coming out of this movie, though, which was really odd to me, that didn't die, and I don't want to die, is they are nailing Thor at the moment.
Thor's come out of Ragnarok just looking brilliant, and they've made him even more brilliant. We need to talk about the start of the film, actually.
Yes. Well, okay, we'll go back to the start of the film. So
TLDR, Thor Ragnarok may as well have not happened.
Yes.
Thor may as well have just, I don't know, put his hammer in the wash and shrunk it or something.
Yeah.
So you've got these characters coming out of Ragnarok. Obviously Thor, Loki, Thor and Loki united together at last. Heimdall was still knocking around. Valkyrie coming out of it looking amazing. Hulk coming out of it looking great.
Korg
as well. Taika Waititi. Korg.
Korg is dead. Korg is dead.
So the scene opens with everyone dead. Asgard, the people, not the place. The people are all dead now. Off screen, we see Heimdall get stabbed on screen. He's the one that sends Hulk to Earth. Mark Ruffalo taking on a kind of messenger role, actually.
Yeah, he opens the Bifrost and sends Hulk to Earth, which is a bit weird because I just don't get why he didn't just send everyone to Earth, because the beam passes through Thor. But I suppose you're not meant to think about that.
And then we see Loki go at the Mad Titan in possession of the Power Stone with a dagger. You could either analyse it as bold or stupid. Unfortunately, Loki is then killed. Just choked. You kind of see his face puff up. His eyes go red. The colour drain from his cheeks. It's kind of
horrible,
real. In a way that not a lot of kind of deaths are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
And there's a crunch as he snaps his spine, and it's just oh god.
So I think this might actually be a permanent death. I don't think they're going to bring Loki back. I feel like if they were going to, they wouldn't have killed him right at the start of the film, and B, killed him in an almost kind of a brazen way, kind of just disregarding him almost. I feel like they'd have made a big thing of it, like they did in The Dark World. obviously after that they then directly revealed that he was alive. But like they did in The Dark World,
Yeah,
you know, the film was focused on that. But yeah, Thanos was the focus of that scene.
It was a brilliant opening. So we just have, before Loki's death, we have the moment where Thanos is a boss, because he's talking down to everyone. He has Thor captured by like using a guy that has telekinetic powers to hold Thor down on the floor. And Loki, I think Thanos says something to him like, "Oh, I've got the Power Stone. What do you have?" And Loki says, "We've got a Hulk." And Hulk just comes flying anywhere, and he's wailing into Thanos. Thanos looks like he's about to get beaten in the open 5 minutes. And then he turns it around and turns the Hulk, who's the strongest character we've seen in the Avengers movies up until now, into his whipping boy. And
he's just a fly that he swats
beautiful.
off his arm. It's very, very, very surreal seeing the Hulk, you know, who's usually the one that comes in and beats everyone down and rescues the situation, just to be throttled down like that. To see him broken, sort of bleeding, the Hulk bleeding. It was very surreal. But that's when I got the impression, because I was worried for the whole time that they'd really fuck Thanos up. And that moment is when I relaxed a bit, and I was like, oh, okay, they are doing him as just going around crushing everybody.
I love the touch as well, that because of this initial beatdown, for the rest of the movie, the Hulk is scared to come out, and we're stuck with just Bruce Banner. The Hulk refuses, like, every time Bruce tries to turn into the Hulk just like appears and goes, nope, because he's that scared of Thanos.
It's the opposite of Ragnarok. At the end of Ragnarok, obviously, Bruce Banner didn't want to turn into the Hulk because he's scared he'd never be able to turn back. Now we have the opposite problem of the Hulk being so scared of Thanos that he doesn't want to come out. Can we gush about Thanos for a bit?
Oh, he's perfect. It's Josh Brolin nails it.
Every appearance, every aspect of Thanos is incredible. His CGI is brilliant. Josh Brolin nails the voice. The expression they managed to get out of him. They almost humanize him. His backstory, his cause. They're kind of believable causes. He's quite relatable for a guy holding 6 different versions of infinite power on his left hand. You feel like you can get on his page.
It was, for me, the moment there's a scene, I think it's in the back third of the film, where he's just sat down and I think he's got like dust or flower petals or something in his hand, and he blows them away, and it does a close-up on his face, and you can see in the CGI that he's got tiny hair follicles all over his face, and it's just like, the fact that the people thought to do something like that is perfect. He looks real, which is just, it's not Uncanny Valley,
which for like a 10-foot purple dude is pretty is a pretty notable achievement.
It's just, oh god.
So Thanos is, I mean, to say that he's the best MCU villain would be something of an insult, because actually there haven't been that many strong ones.
I'd say, I'm just having a think, he might be, I'd say maybe top 3 all-time comic book movie villains. I feel like the only 2 that beat him would be Heath Ledger's Joker and I've forgotten the actor's name, but the guy that played Dr. Octopus in the original Spider-Man 2.
Oh dear.
I think Alfred Lamido or something like that, because that, like, but he's that level. He's far beyond what Marvel have ever done before.
Thanos makes this film. To kind of for them to bring the Avengers all together, you know, the sake of marketing, the galaxy's mightiest heroes, all brought together in the same film, and all made to look as weak as they were.
Yeah.
And so hopeless. It's incredible. Thanos was just amazing. I can't gush about him enough.
No, he was fantastic. We also got another villain in this movie, which came as a massive surprise to me. And that is halfway through the movie, we find out what happened to Red Skull. And
this physically made me jolt in my chair. I was not expecting this. This came so out of left field. So obviously in his previous appearance, Red Skull got hold of the Soul Stone.
Space Stone. It was the Tesseract.
Sorry, yes.
And he gets teleported into space, basically.
So, yeah. So later on in the film, Thanos is tracking the Soul Stone with Gamora, and we see a guardian of the Soul Stone.
It's the gatekeeper.
The gatekeeper to the Soul Stone. He's like a revenant ward, almost.
Kind of looks like looks like the ghost of Christmas yet to come.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The Muppets Christmas Future, kind of just black rags and like a very demonic sort of stature. And he moves forward, and it's fucking Red Skull.
It's brilliant. It's not Hugo Weaving though. He's not returned.
Yeah,
they've got a new actor.
But it's Red Skull. They've addressed Red Skull, and kudos for that. So he's sort of guarding the Soul Stone, and leading people seeking it to it. And actually, let's talk about what happens after that. So Gamora's with Thanos, and I refer to him as Red Skull rather than the Guardian, because it makes me grin. So Red Skull informs Thanos that to come into possession of the Soul Stone, he needs to give up that which he loves. So Gamora. So our best theory on this is Gamora. Obviously, because she claims earlier in the film that she knows where the Soul Stone is and knows how to get it. Our best guess is that she didn't count on Thanos loving anything, so she thought that would be game over for him. As it turns out, Thanos really does love Gamora as his daughter. There's several sort of flashbacks where he kind of takes her under his wing. And then there's actual sort of paternal love there. So Thanos cries. He's sort of very upset. Gamora saying, you've lost. You're in mourning. And then Red Skull says he's not mourning himself. And then Thanos throws Gamora off the ledge. Off of a ledge. And so that's actually the death of Gamora. Gamora actually dies. Didn't see this coming. I thought if either of the daughters were to die, it would be Nebula. Just because of her role in the original Infinity Gauntlet comic. This kind of caught me off guard. Again, I'm not sure that this one will be permanent. Just because it's Gamora. We've got there's still a dynamic between Gamora and Star-Lord. And obviously with the third Guardians film coming up, it would be very unlikely that she does stay dead.
It was a beautiful scene, though.
It was perfectly executed. And then Thanos sort of in a vision seeing sort of young Gamora later on in the film when he collects all seven and six Infinity Stones and snapping his fingers. Young Gamora asking him if it's worth it, and you can see on his face that he's not sure. As I say, it goes a long way to sort of making Thanos relatable, which is very impressive that they did.
Yeah. It's not that well, the way I saw it is, it's not that you understand his motivations. You understand why he thinks it's the right thing to do. Like, what he's doing is monstrous, and they don't make it seem like it's the right thing to do at any point in the movie. But you 100% get why he thinks it's the right thing to do.
One other thing, going back to what we said about the timing being inconsistent, this beautiful scene kind of concludes really, really brilliantly. And it's immediately followed by a Captain America Groot joke. Just kind of serves to cut all of the legs
is the one we were talking about earlier.
Previous scene. Yeah, and it was a funny joke, but following a scene like that,
it just didn't land, and that was
no.
one of the few times that the humour didn't land in this movie. Just trying to think of when Red Skull first appeared. Taking it back to that, my first initial reaction was, "We got something right," because in our very first episode of this podcast, when we were talking about Infinity War, we mentioned how cool it would be if Red Skull showed up, and then there he was.
There he was.
That was a Two Polished Nerd exclusive. They were
you heard it here first, folks.
They listened to our podcast and they were such big fans, they thought they wanted to put him in for us.
Let's go with that.
Yep.
Yep. So what follows that? So obviously Gamora dying. There's a really rushed scene early on in the film where Star-Lord and Gamora. So Gamora claims she's the only person that knows where the Soul Stone is, and then tells Star-Lord the best course of action is to go to Thanos. No, that's not the correct course of action. That's a really stupid thing to do.
There's a lot of that in this movie, unfortunately.
There's a few idiot plots.
Yeah.
Idiot plot points, what I call. Basically, what happens hinges on the somebody being an idiot.
Star-Lord mainly.
Yeah. There's a big Star-Lord idiot plot point later on. So
I just talking about before we mention the Gamora thing, it's important to mention that out of nowhere in this movie, Star-Lord and Gamora are a couple and they're in love with each other.
Yeah, we kind of see the hints of that at the end of Guardians 2.
But they're not a couple.
We have to assume that something's happened off screen.
It's just a bit.
Because suddenly they're in love enough that they declare love for each other at some point when... So Gamora requests that to Star-Lord that if Thanos gets a hold of her, then Star-Lord needs to shoot her. Speaking of that, that's the first instance we see an actual Infinity Stone, apart from obviously the Power Stone in Guardians.
Yeah. And at the beginning of this film, you see Thanos torture Thor with the Power Stone.
So the on-screen application of the stones in general was really, really cool. The Reality Stone kind of...
Yeah.
Thanos actually tricks Gamora. That's how he takes her hostage. He actually tricks Gamora into thinking she's killed him using the Reality Stone. They sort of go to the collector's
collection
layer. Collection, I guess. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
No Howard the Duck this time. Sad.
Or Cosmo.
Side note. Or Cosmo. But they go there and they see it deserted and the collector there. And then obviously Gamora sneaks up on Thanos, stabs him in the throat. And he appears to die. And Gamora's very upset and everything. And then you hear Thanos' voice, and then very slowly there's like a red film that peels away at the scenery, and you actually see it's just destroyed, on fire. The Collector's not actually there, and neither was Thanos. The Reality Stone he uses to turn Drax into just like a statue of concrete blocks that all fall over. He turns Mantis into like a paper
swirly thing,
like a paper swirly thing. I don't know how to better describe it. But seeing the applications of the of the stones on the screen, they generally looked really, really cool.
What else does? He also melts the Hulkbuster into a mountain, which was really cool.
Ah, that's it. Yeah, he kind of phases the Hulkbuster armor out of reality and phases it back in when it's in a mountain. So the Hulkbuster armor is just stuck there.
Although it's not at the end of the film, he somehow gets out of that, but we're not meant to question.
Yes, no, that's not mentioned. So, speaking of the Hulkbuster armor being phased into a mountain, he does that when he's advancing towards Vision.
Yes.
Now, it was not a surprise that Vision was going to die. I kind of assumed that this film would end with Thanos in possession of all of the Infinity Stones to really make everyone look kind of screwed.
Yeah.
Obviously, with one of the stones being in Vision's head, we have to assume that's it for him, that he won't come back.
It's probably worth mentioning that they massively neuter Vision in this movie, to the point where he can't. They stab him with a sword very early on in the movie, and then from that point on, he can't really use any of his powers for the rest of the movie, and it's not really explained. You just get a throwaway line of, "Oh no, I can't phase," and it's like, I get that you kind of had to neuter him because he's ridiculously powerful, but they could have taken more time to write how he gets neutered than just stabbed.
Yeah, sure. It's fair enough to say that all of Vision's appearances are him just getting beaten up. Later.
What did you think of Human Vision at the beginning of the film?
How do you mean?
Well, when we first see him, he's living in Scotland with Wanda because they're a couple now.
Yes.
And he looks human. I didn't know he could do that. Is that just a movie thing, or?
No, I'm aware that he could do that. If I thought it was I thought it was all right. I was a bit confused when I saw the title card Scotland.
Yeah.
But that's just
Vision's
kind
hiding there, isn't he?
Yeah.
It was quite cool. He gets just like attacked by Vision's Thanos' children.
Who are all awesome, by the way. That all of them are pretty
unique.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Don't remember any of their names, but
no, I don't think they were ever given. There's one in particular. He's the one that masterminds the capture of Doctor Strange. He was awesome, really cool. He got thrown into space, so he's dead. But
in fact, how many of them are dead?
I think there were 2 present on Wakanda.
Yeah, because one gets killed very early on. One gets killed very early on. One gets chucked into space.
The one that's killed very early on comes back. He's the one that breaks into the Wakandan hospital to get Thanos. Vision.
And then one of them gets blown up. We're in against the shield to get around Wakanda.
Yeah.
One of them gets. Oh, what happens to the female one? She gets killed by like Black Widow.
Oh, that's it.
Scarlet Witch.
Scarlet Witch throws her in front of a. Let's call it a tank, a big wheelie tank. Yeah. So Vision gets thrown around a bit. So Thanos it's quite a cool setup. Thanos is very slowly advancing towards Vision, and you have all the kind of heroes there: Captain America, Black Panther, the Falcon, Black Widow, all kind of stepping in to try and fight him as it cuts between Vision and the Scarlet Witch. So it's explained that Scarlet Witch has the power to destabilize the molecular structure of the Reality Stone and destroy it.
Which is weird.
It's odd. I suppose it is just it is a stone, but it's a stone containing infinite power.
It's one of those.
So infinite control over mind.
It's because it's a because movie moment. It's a little thing. You just kind of one of those things you just got to accept. Stranger things happen in comic books all the time, so it's like.
I mean, yeah. So as sort of Thanos pushes towards them, Scarlet Witch actually kind of does it. She destabilizes the Mind Stone in Vision's head, and it explodes, and it appears that's it. It was a really nice moment, and then Thanos just uses the Time Stone to undo it. A really big fan of that moment. I thought that was so cool. It would have been so goofy if they proceeded with that, because obviously Thanos possessing 5 of the Infinity Stones already.
Yeah.
For him to kind of
not remember that.
And to see such an emotional sort of moment between Scarlet Witch and Vision, to have her kill him like that in such an emotional fashion, and then to see him die, just Thanos kind of ripping the stone out of his head, and just seeing his armor, his shell turn black as it dies. It was really cool. And then Thor gets a new axe as well. He goes off to a I forget the name of it. It's like a 4-syllable name. It's
a dying star forged by ancient dwarves. Very Thor-like.
Peter Dinklage is there.
Playing a giant dwarf.
That's kind of great.
Yeah.
There's a really clunky Game of Thrones reference, actually. Sort of Peter Dinklage screaming, "Hold the door, hold the door." Obviously, if you've watched Game of Thrones, you'll know what that's referencing.
What else is there? Thor gets
So
his eye back
there's
for some reason.
yes, not too against that.
No,
I secretly thought the eye patch did look a bit dumb.
it was a bit. So it didn't. It would have worked better if he still had the long hair.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah. So he's got a robot eye that was up Rocket's bum. That was a bit weird.
Yeah. So Iron Man. Let's talk Iron Man.
Well, do you want to talk about the Thor and Thanos at the end?
Yeah, we may as well.
Yeah, because we might as well there.
So, as we say, Thor is just everyone on Wakanda seems to be losing a fight. The fight against Thanos' sort of minions, and then Thor shows up and kills about 200 of them instantaneously.
He goes badass
with his new God Hammer, which there's a brilliant moment before that actually. The axe head itself is cast, but there's no handle. So Groot, who's now a teenage boy and can't stop playing video games, by the way, and it's
old retro 80s video games.
In the most metal moment I've ever seen, kind of grabs hold of the handle and then chops his arm off, so his wooden arm becomes the handle of this axe. It's really metal cool as fuck. So Iron Man, as I've mentioned earlier, there's a bait and switch with him. So Iron Man is on Titan fighting Thanos alongside Spider-Man, Doctor Strange and Star-Lord. Oh, and Mantis and Drax.
Drax and Mantis, yeah.
So they actually partway through manage to pin him down. Mantis gets a hold of his head and subdues him, and they're pulling the gauntlet off. And then it's revealed to everyone that Thanos has killed Gamora. This is the idiot plot point we were talking about. Star-Lord basically loses his temper in a really kind of weird moment and just starts punching Thanos in the face. I don't know why.
Just as they get the gauntlet off.
It is nearly off. I don't know why it took them so long. It is just a glove.
It's just because movie.
Because movie, of course. Because tension. Yeah. So Star-Lord starts punching Thanos in the face, and then Mantis slips off. Thanos gets the glove back on, and then half the universe dies because Star-Lord is a child.
Yeah.
You can't put his impulsiveness behind him when the universe is at stake. So everyone else on Titan kind of gets beaten down, and then Iron Man is the last man standing. This is where I was kind of sort of sat in the movie theatre going, wait a minute, are they actually going to? They...
Because he gets stabbed by Thanos with his own sword.
So there's a fight that ensues. Thanos throws a moon at Iron Man.
Yep.
And then Robert Downey Jr., there's a brilliant line. Robert Downey Jr. says, if you throw another moon at me, I'm really going to get mad. It's just the most kind of the most kind of Iron Man line ever spoken. Just the kind of heroism in the face of something like Thanos.
It was brilliant, and Iron Man has a weird suit in this. I'm trying to look up which one it is now. It's made of like nano machines or something.
It's a nanomachine suit. I don't know if it's given a name.
I'm just looking it up now, which it's... here we go. Armor is... It's by the looks of things, it's the Mark 50.
Mark 50.
That's what Wiki was saying. So if we're wrong, blame Wikipedia, not me.
So with along with the Iron Spider, it didn't look brilliant.
Great. It looked like the Iron Man suit from the what's the comic book that Iron Man 3 is based on, with the superpowered zombie fire people.
Couldn't tell you.
But it looks like the suit in that that art style from that comic book. It's called Infernus or something like that. It looks like that. It's a bit more streamlined than previous Iron Man suits.
But it looks like it looks like track pants. It's really, really skin tight.
Yes.
So as we say, Thanos stabs Iron Man. Iron Man nearly dies. And then Doctor Strange, for reasons not really made clear, basically says to Thanos, if you spare Iron Man, I will give you the Time Stone.
Yeah. Which doesn't make any sense because they met like 2 days ago.
So earlier on in the film, Doctor Strange uses the Time Stone to look through. I think he says something like 14 million.
Yeah.
Possible outcomes of these conflicts, and apparently there's only one outcome they win. My best guess, the outcome they win comes about because they let Thanos win. As in the original Infinity Gauntlet comic series, they let Thanos win to beat him. I don't know. It didn't feel like that was the intention. It just felt like a bit of a throwaway.
Yeah. It was. I feel like the Iron Man situation and the Doctor Strange situation, it didn't really work for the characters, in a sense that Doctor Strange, his whole purpose in life is to protect the Eye of Agamotto from, like, that. He mentions in the movie that's his like whole goal in all of the known universes.
Yeah, of course. And then to see him roll over and play dead so quickly following that. Again, we can only assume it's because that's the outcome he picked.
We hope so, anyway.
That's what we're hoping.
And then Iron Man fixes himself with a can of squirty cream.
Yeah, whipped cream.
Yeah,
whipped cream.
So
I can only assume it was some sort of freezing spray.
Yeah. Bacta tank.
Pardon?
It was a Bacta tank.
Yeah. It was deep heat gel. That's what it was. Deep heat cures all.
I'm just trying to think if there's anything else we need to mention.
Nick Fury comes back in the post-credit scene.
Yes, he does, for like 30 seconds.
There is a post-credit scene. Don't be thrown. I sat there for an awful long time.
Yeah.
It's an awful long time. There's a title crawl, and then more credits, and then there's a post-credits.
Yeah, it's like the original.
Nick Fury. Yeah. So Nick Fury is in a car. Obviously, this is just as the finger snapping occurs. I don't know why, but so the Jeep that Nick Fury's in gets crashed into by another Jeep, and I don't know why, but I was thinking Wolverine.
Wishful thinking.
It was somewhat wishful thinking. Obviously, there were rumours beforehand that Hugh Jackman had been spotted on the set, not verified.
No, and he's not in it.
Nick Fury actually dies.
Again.
As he sort of vanishes, he sort of starts to say "mother,"
yeah,
and then sort of vanishes, which is brilliant. But he drops a distress beacon that he's pressed. It says "searching, searching, searching," and the last shot we see is an image on this transponder of Captain Marvel's suit.
Yes. So
where
is
Captain
she?
Marvel is going to directly be involved in Infinity War. She is going to probably play a significant role in turning the tide in Part 2. Which is cool. I mean, from what I've seen, Brie Larson is a really good choice.
The set photos look amazing.
The set photos look brilliant.
We'll probably get a trailer with Ant-Man, won't we?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably, yes. And I suppose the last thing to talk about is the very ending of the film.
Yes.
Thanos disappearing, the Infinity Gauntlet. It looks damaged. I'm gonna assume that it's
one use only. I think it's.
Do you think so?
I think it's busted. I think it's complete. I think it's destroyed itself. It's a one-use thing. Because if you look, even Thanos' arm is all like burnt off and crispy. And because it's because it's not the Infinity Gauntlet as we know it, is it? It was made by the dwarf who made Thor's hammer. Yeah. Like, as a special request, Thanos went to them and said that I want something that can do this. So it's not the original Infinity Gauntlet, which I assume must be the one that's in Asgard's vault, or was until Asgard was destroyed.
The one in Asgard's vault is a fake. It's actually right-handed.
Is it? Oh, okay.
So that's how Hela knows in Thor Ragnarok that it's a fake.
So I assume there's no real Infinity Gauntlet then?
No, it doesn't exist outside of it being created, no.
No, okay.
The stones are what exist. The gauntlet is just to harness them. But I don't know. We'll see. But he teleports away. He mentions right at the start of the film that he wants to wipe half of all life in the universe out, and then watch the sun rise on a grateful universe. And we sort of see him teleport away to this very sort of rural planet as he sits under a wooden canopy and watches the sunrise, and he smiles.
It was lovely.
Mission accomplished. It was such a perfect ending. Not once did I hate Thanos, actually. And that's not a bad thing. He's not kind of mustache twiddlingly evil in the traditional sense. He's got goals. He stands by them. He believes in them, and he's prepared to lose for them, which is what makes him so relatable. You know, the problem with superheroes is how do you make them relatable? Because they're not really. But I really think they did a brilliant job. The Thanos arc. Have to say, I don't know where they're going to go with it when Part 2 rolls around.
No,
it's pretty well concluded.
It's gonna be a difficult thing to sell, especially with the fact that we've now got 2 movies coming out between now and then. There's a throwaway line at the beginning of the film as to why Ant-Man is not in this movie. Apparently, he's on house arrest. We were saying when we were talking about this, it's incredibly convenient if Ant-Man, Wasp, and Michael Douglas, like all of them, didn't die in this, or is this set before Infinity War? I was saying,
I'm gonna have to assume that it's set before Infinity War.
I was saying last night that it'd be really cool.
Reference it.
It would be really cool if the movie ends with them disintegrating. If we go to see Ant-Man and the Wasp and they save the day, and then at the end of the movie they disintegrate, like all the characters in Infinity War, I feel like that would be an incredible ending to the movie if they have the balls to do it.
No, I don't think they do. It would be cool, just that kind of, just to show where it lies in the continuity.
Yeah.
But in that case, you have to ask what Ant-Man and the Wasp were doing when Thanos invaded Earth.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not that they could do much. So, I'm just trying to think, is there anything we've not really mentioned? We've done Red Skull, we've done the deaths, we've done Thanos. Is there any... There was no, like, surprise weird cameos in this one? Stan Lee's a bus driver.
Just the token Stan Lee cameo. They are what they are now, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's hardly surprising. I'd have thought, given the scope of the film, that he'd have a slightly bigger cameo. Although I guess his line, as sort of there are school kids, Peter Parker included, on a bus watching Thanos' ship land in New York, Stan Lee just turns and says, "What's the matter? Have you never seen an alien invasion before?" Which is kind of cool.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything left, is there?
But considering in Guardians 2 he was a watcher, it's a bit of a step down.
Yeah, but even then he's just a watcher. He could still be the same watcher. He's not.
That's true.
He's not allowed to get involved as a watcher, so we don't know.
No. Yeah, of course.
I'm just trying to think of something that we haven't mentioned. We've all of the characters. I can't believe like Valkyrie and that lot are dead, because I genuinely believe she was going to take over from Thor.
She was built like she was going somewhere.
Yeah. And then killed off screen.
I mean, I don't know if we saw her die. We have to assume she's dead. We have to assume that Thor is now the only surviving Asgardian.
Yeah. I think that's. I can't think of anything else. Can you?
Quick side note: it was quite cool to see them reference the original comic series in that Nebula was being held captive on the brink of death. It's a nice nod to what the role she plays in the original comic series. In the original comic series, she's not a robot. She's a zombie, basically eternally being held by Thanos on the point of death, as a tribute to Mistress Death, who in that run is sort of in Marvel comic lore. Thanos actually has a crush on Mistress Death. He kind of fights with Deadpool about it in a weird little standalone. That's another thing, actually. I like how they addressed that, how they addressed what Thanos' motive would be. Obviously, without Mistress Death in the MCU, because why on earth would they go there?
Well, she is. Hela's in Ragnarok.
Hela's not Mistress Death. They're just different. entities. I actually looked into it because originally Ragnarok's sort of initial promotional material, that's what I thought they were doing. They are actually separate entities.
Oh, okay. So she's just the goddess of death, not death itself.
Mistress Death is just death. The Grim Reaper, I suppose. But yeah, I like how they sort of address what Thanos' motives were, sort of the destruction of Titan.
And calling him a madman.
Yeah, and just to see him so kind of grounded, rather than, as I say, rather than mad.
Yeah. I think the best place to end off is to just go and see this movie. If you
go and see this movie, it's a landmark. It represents 10 years of build up. It's the 2.5 hours that were 10 years in the making. It's a special film. Whether or not you like it, you hate it. It for all the promotional material has been sort of cramming down our throats. It is one of a kind. Nothing like this has ever happened. Go and see it for the spectacle. Go and see it for Thanos because he's great, and go and see it just to watch all of the MCU characters crossing over in one place.
If you ever want to see Star-Lord and Iron Man have a little tiff about who's cooler, this is kind of they handle every character brilliantly. It's everything you want this movie to be. Yes, it's got some pacing issues, but they don't take away from the film. It's going to be the best film of the year. I can't think of anything that's even going to come close to beating it, unless somehow Solo is good, but we all know that's not going to happen.
It's seeming less likely. Oh, and they called Chris Pratt fat as well.
Yeah.
So go and see it for that. Fat shaming for the win.
So that was our episode on Infinity Wars. I hope you enjoyed me and Matt actually being positive about something. I wouldn't get too used to it.
No, not with Solo coming.
No.
I feel like that's going to be quite a bashing.
But it's nice to have some positivity out there. Before we go, I'm going to shamelessly plug us. So if you want to join our Facebook group, that's Two Polished Nerds. Follow us on Twitter at Two Polished Nerds, and that's 2 with a number 2, not a letter. Is there anything else that we need to plug shamelessly?
Instagram? I don't know.
Instagram. Do we have an Instagram account?
I was told that we do. I am the least social media person in the world. So
I have an Instagram account, so you can follow me, and I will be posting about it. I don't use social media, so let me just find my thing. Ollie Cardrick. Follow me at that. I post whenever new episodes are going live on there. But the best place to learn all the stuff is the Twitter handle. I'm pretty sure that's it.
Pluggo.
This episode. Plug. This episode, I don't need to tell you when it's going live because you'll be listening to it on the day it goes live, so that's kind of pointless to say, but I'm probably still going to leave it in because why not? So that was... Oh,
wow, what a strong ending.
It's what editing's for. This has been the Polished Nerd Podcast, episode 2 on Infinity War. I've been your host, Oliver Cardrick.
Episode 4.
What? Episode 4? What? Okay, so this has been the Polished Nerd Podcast, episode 4 on Avengers Infinity War. I've been your host, Oliver Cardrick.
Yeah, I've been Matt Patterson.
And tune in next time where we'll probably be destroying a movie or a comic book or a game series. And thank you for listening. And stop recording.
I already have. Well, that ending needs some recording, editing. Oh, I haven't stopped recording. No! Disaster.